From control, testing PA system, testing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Testing, testing, testing. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Control to Colin Atkins Pavilion. This is an emergency. This is an emergency. Evacuate now. Thank you. Yeah, if you go into the restaurant, we'll try again. Test call. Testing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Hello folks and welcome to, for the first time this season, the Cooper Associates County Ground. I'm Sam Dallingham alongside Pete Trigo and Vic Marks today in the commentary box. Unfortunately, we won't be here for long. Day one of this LV Insurance County Championship game, the season opener, Somerset versus Warwickshire, has been called off already. No play today, folks. It's a real disappointment for the fans. It must be a real disappointment for the players as well. We should remember that. They will have been tense, ready for the new season to get underway. We'll be back all year, courtesy of WPA Health Insurance. We're going to have a quick chat about the state of play, not today's play, but generally. Triggs, you will have experienced the night the players had last night, on the cusp of a new season. What was it like as a player getting ready for this sort of opening ball?
Yeah, I think in fairness, you get to the stage of your pre-season. You've done the pre-season tour. You've had the nets in the wind and the rain and the snow sometimes. And I think you get to a stage of the pre-season where you're so fed up of pre-season, you cannot wait for day one. So I could only liken it to Christmas Eve, really. I mean, this is what we do all the winter work for. So, you know, even myself getting ready to have my first day of the season on commentary, you're excited, up nice and early, ready to go. And yeah, to have the phone call or the message from you, Sam, when I hadn't even hit Bridgewater, saying that no play at 9:30, it was almost, I mean, this is a well-used word over the last 3 years, it was unprecedented.
Well, I got as far as Tiverton, thinking, wonder who's going to win the toss and all that stuff, and then I got a message through from someone to say there wouldn't be any play. But there is, I mean, it's a great sadness, but there's always that excitement this time of year. The other thing that happens, I remember now from the dim and distant past, is that even good players will be fretting. Can I still do it? Will I be able to see the ball? Will I be able to score? I remember having conversations with some of my contemporaries, good players, fretting about the season. I said, don't worry, you will get 1,100 runs at 39 and everyone will think you're wonderful. But you're never quite sure of that yourself, you know, especially as you get a little bit older. Have I still got it? Will my reflexes still work? Well, they probably will. It's all right. The first run
anxiety. Yeah. I mean, it's even more heightened. You, like I said, you know, preparing for your first game of the season. You know, coming from Weston-super-Mare, I would take out my bucket and spade and put my cricket kit in. But today, I should have kept the bucket and spade in, looking at the outfield, which is, I think, pretty much the reason why today's play has been called off. The outfield isn't looking in great nick, especially under the Marcus Trescothic stand there. The fake tan machine is on, hopefully trying to get some grass growth over the next couple of days.
You've got a real one.
It's definitely a surface that Greg Rutherford might enjoy. Now, you talked about those nerves, the first run, the first ball. It will be heightened for a couple of lads as well who are set to make their Somerset debuts. Let's talk a little bit about the new signings, because there's been a lot of talk over the last couple of years of Somerset being light in the batting department. They've brought in Sean Dixon from Durham. They've brought in Tom Kohler-Cadmore from Yorkshire. And Cameron Bancroft will be looking to push his case for an Ashes spot later in the summer, the leading run scorer in the Sheffield Shield. That's impressive business, Triggs.
Yeah, I think, I'd like to start with talking about Sean Dixon. To be honest, I mean, I came in for a couple of bowls this winter before the lads went off to Abu Dhabi, and I've played a fair bit of cricket against them as well. I actually think he's a very shrewd signing. Tom Kohler-Cadmore, Cameron Bancroft are fine players that a lot of our listeners will know a lot about. But I actually have real high hopes for Sean Dixon and what he'll bring to the team. He looks a very, very, very good player.
And it's a key slot, isn't it, at the top of the order. It seems nowadays it gets even more difficult to start the innings when the ball's new and it's moving around before it gets a bit softer and it doesn't misbehave quite so much. So it's a key area. And we were flaky last year. Sometimes it worked, but quite often it didn't. We were very often, 4 down for 60 or something, and it was a repair job having to happen. So hopefully, I mean, he'll be nervous too. He's an experienced old pro, no doubt, by modern standards. But because it's a new club and you've got the drive, the excitement of having to prove yourself to new teammates. It doesn't matter how old you are when you're there. It's exciting, and it drives you forward by and large. But it's a new challenge at a new club.
Exactly right. I mean, when you go into a new environment, you might have 25 first-class hundreds behind you on your career ledger. But in a new environment, you want to show your teammates that you've got the skills, and it's almost your personality can bed you into a dressing room, but really the acid test is how many runs, how many wickets you get of a new team. But certainly 3 very exciting signings. I think at the top of the order as well, Sean Dixon does bring quite a unique technique to the game, as I mentioned to you a little bit earlier, Vic. He's got almost a little bit of a, dare I say it, a Jonathan Trott style of scoring. He makes his off stump quite leg side. He can be quite awkward to bowl at as a seam bowler. One of the challenges is county cricket, positive wicket pitches. I think a lot of the curators out there are trying to prepare a pitch that 20 wickets will be taken. So it's a very difficult job at the top.
Although they have, yes, that's absolutely right. And there weren't that many runs scored last year, by and large. They've tried to jig the system a bit to encourage flatter pitches. The draw has gone down in points. But the batting bonus points, I think you've got to get 250 to get 1 batting point, and then you just keep getting them for every 50 runs. That's a lot of runs to get 1 batting point.
Yeah, the number
certainly is in April.
Well, it certainly is when you're not playing.
It's weird because we all think that, but I was having a look, and so last summer there were more 500-plus scores in the opening 4 rounds of the county championship than there had been in the entire previous 4 years. So it was always one way around. Ground stuff just couldn't get it right. I think Kent were probably involved in most of those, but it either went one way or the other. So I suppose they're perhaps looking to emulate what the England side are doing and encourage run scoring more quickly, and also they're looking for results. I quite like the idea of taking having a few less points for the draw, because actually Surrey didn't win the most county championship games last season. Hampshire did, and I haven't quite done the maths, but if you take away 3 points from all the draws, then it's suddenly a much tighter table.
Yeah, we still got to win games. I mean, that's the crunch, and we're looking at there. I mean, it looks flat from here. It's just a nice little bit of grass on it, but not too much. I've seen it much greener than that.
They all look flat from 100 metres away, don't they, Vic?
And it's very frustrating not to see some people bowling on it, but maybe tomorrow. But those 3, I mean, there's another signing on the way, isn't it? Matt Henry's going to come.
Oh, yes.
Who has had a very good start to the year with New Zealand, and he should provide, an even deeper sort of reservoir of pace bowlers. I think Andy likes pace bowlers who've been around a bit, doesn't he? They're quite, it's quite an old.
Well, he had tremendous success for Kent as well
exactly,
when he's been over here. He's actually one of those bowlers that you look at with his attributes, very, very well suited to English conditions. I think he's not a hit the deck bowler. He looks like a kiss the wicket bowler with good skills. He swings the ball both ways, nips it a little bit. So, yeah, I mean, in terms of attributes, I mean, he's ticking all the boxes.
Yeah, and he knows. Well, he's done very well for Kent. He got a lot of wickets for them, and he's on the crest of a little wave as an international player. He's just come back into the New Zealand side, played well against England in one of the tests. So that's quite exciting.
87 wickets at 15s Matt Henry took for Kent. He's here from the 11th of May for the Lancashire game after New Zealand's ODI series in Pakistan. He will play 7 county championship games and the Blast. So before he comes then, we've got this game and the opening round. Who would your seam attack be? Because we've got Peter Siddle, got Craig Overton, the talisman, Lewis Gregory, if he's fit. Jack Brooks was in the squad. You've got Casey Aldridge as well. Josh Davey. Go on.
Well, they've got a bit of a problem because they're all fit. I think the only injury problems are Tom Abel, obviously, and I think Tom Banton is not fit either. He's got a finger problem, so he wasn't up for selection. I'm sure, in theory, they always have the theory that they'll look to. There's a lot of cricket right at the start of the season, almost as if 5 or 6 championship matches in a row, and it's a lot of cricket for a pace bowler to play all the time. So they'll try and juggle the workload a bit, but it's very hard to juggle it to the extent of Craig, have a rest. Because he's the absolute linchpin.
Can you imagine trying to get the ball off Joel in April?
Well, yeah, no. Joel wasn't that keen on bowling. But April's a great time to bowl. I remember one year you ended up opening the bowling.
50 wickets.
And I know. And I don't know whether that had been a cunning plan or whether someone was injured at the start, but they couldn't get it off you until probably July.
Well, I think it's a horses for courses thing, and guys like Dave Masters, Darren Stevens, Dimitri Mascarenhas, the list goes on. County bowlers that bowl at, that same sort of pace with relative accuracy on a sporty wicket are just as hard as, actually sometimes harder to face in some ways. You speak to Trez, would you rather face Dave Masters or Brett Lee? He picked Brett Lee all day long. He used to drive him crackers getting out to bowlers that bowled 75 miles an hour.
That is actually an interesting sort of contrast between the demands of Test cricket, by and large, and the demands of county cricket. So people like, I think Alistair Cook's the same, and I know a lot of openers who set themselves to play 85 mile an hour plus bowlers, essentially become back foot players, use the pace of the ball. And that's what they base their technique on. And then suddenly you come up against, I don't know, Mascarenhas or, those 79, 77 mile an hour who just hit the seam. You've got to get forward, but you don't want to get forward against those guys because, you've been opening the batting for years and getting the cut.
They want you to go forward because then you nick it and hit the pad. But that's more. I think that's more to do with what you stood on rather than the bowler, with respect to bowlers at Test level and county level. I mean, it's about, like I said, horses for courses. These wet, damper wickets really do suit bowlers that just bowl accurately and around the stumps.
But the point, going back to your point though, is that as things stand, everyone's fit as far as I'm aware in the bowling department. So it's hard to pick the best team. Craig Overton's in it, and he now takes a new ball. And he is. He's just signed a new contract. I'm sure it's a very good contract. But I would have thought, if you look around the counties, he is just about the most valuable county cricketer on the circuit. Partly because he's not playing for England.
And that's what you need to win championships. You need players that are close, but not quite.
Yeah, I mean, you obviously want him to get picked to play for England. You've got to do that. But as things stand, as this season starts, things can change very quickly. He's just on the periphery. What you really hope doesn't happen is that we have a repeat, I think, of last year, where he was on the motorway, driving between Test venues, thousands of miles, but not actually playing for anyone.
Yeah, frustrating for everyone involved in that situation, isn't it?
Well, another man who has found himself in that situation previously, this is a lovely segue, thank you for that, by the way, Vic. Jack Leach, England's leading wicket-taker in 2022. Last year, only Nathan Lyon and Kagiso Rabada took more Test wickets than him. How is he going to fare? Presumably, England will allow him to be available for the first 6 or 7 games.
I think so, yeah.
He seems to have... I read a lovely interview with him where he said... He was at breakfast and Brendan McCullum just said to him, Leachy, smile a bit more, mate, come on. It's the start of the day. And that's the kind of... He seems to be a player who's really started to thrive.
Well, he loves playing for England. I mean, he loves the regime, I know that. I mean, I was in Pakistan, my only sort of out of hibernation time during the winter, where he picked up lots of wickets. He went for quite a lot of runs as well, but he just loved the responsibility. He loved the way they kept him. I said to him several times, they had this little left-hander who kept hitting him for 4 over mid-wicket. And I said, why don't you just put one back there? He never misses. And he said, well, it's not a bad idea. Ben didn't want me to have one there. And he was ever so happy with it, Actually, they got a bit cannier when the game got to the end. But he loves playing for England. And he loves the fact it's wickets what counts. He probably got, I don't know how many wickets in that series, 15 to 20. But he was probably averaging 40. But who cares? England won all the matches. So... that's fine.
He's without doubt cemented himself as the number 1 pick for the spinning position. So no doubt he's going to play a lot.
But it's interesting. I mean, I know the first game last year it may have rained again, and they didn't play. Jack didn't play because the game was shortened. I understand the logic of that, but I also think he's an international bowler. He could win us a couple games. Even in the early season, especially if you have a little dry patch, he could win us. But you need to be playing regularly to be able to do that, I think. So I'd play him in this game, even though it's going to be a shorter game. If it's a 3-day game, I'd definitely play him. Partly he might get, might be a seamer's wicket, but he might end up with 2 for 30 in the match or something like that. But then in the next game, when we might be playing on slightly drier pitches, and it doesn't have to turn square for a spinner to get it, you want him to be in the groove and playing, and not sort of having a net at the start of the season in a match, but ready to go out there and bowl. So I'm hoping that he gets in the team, and I'm sure he will, actually. I'm pretty confident he will.
I think so too. And Treves, do you think we might see a difference in the way he's used? Because England use him differently and they've got the best out of him. Not advocating he necessarily takes the new ball like he has done a couple of times for England, but rather than it being, let's just... Leach is in the background as a spinner, he might get 1 or 2 overs before tea. Actually, we might use him in that more attacking sense. And because I think that your point, Vic, is really important, that actually Leach doesn't mind not having a deep mid-wicket if he knows the captain has told him and it's not going to be on his head. Like he's trusted to do that. So might we see him used a little bit differently?
Well, I think he's one of our international bowlers, so he's clearly going to be at the forefront of the captain's mind in terms of getting him on to bowl. But county cricket, especially if it's what is a reduced game this week in particular, I mean, it's going to be dictated to how the game's going and how the seam bowlers are bowling. But the late great Shane Warne always used to say, if it seems, it spins.
Yeah, exactly.
And left arm spinners, actually, the danger ball, in the DRS era is the one that skids onto the front pad. So, Leach is a class act. He's an experienced bowler. I'm sure he'll do well.
I agree with that. And just sort of backing that up, it doesn't matter what the surface is like. You don't want your spinner to be the bowler of the last resort, i.e. we've tried everything else. Oh, you might as well have a bowl now.
And the over before lunch.
Well, yeah. So, there's no harm in bowling. I mean, you would expect this time of year the seamers to dominate, but there's still no harm in tossing the ball to a spinner surprisingly early, just to see what happens. Just for 2 or 3 overs, you might just get 1 wicket. I remember watching us play Hampshire right at the beginning of last season or season before. Hildreth was playing well. They put on Liam Dawson out of the blue. Ordinary ball, but unusually for James, he either missed it, was LBW, or he got out anyway. They probably took him off an over or 2 after that. He'd done his little bit of work, have a break. But just that change, and a quality bowler like Jack, you're right, he can get LBW bowled Leach in the first or second over against some right-hander who's been fending off the seamers. That can happen. So yeah. I think we're probably going to play 4 seamers anyway, so you might as well play. You've got enough seam bowling knocking around.
I think it's what's interesting when you put together a seam bowling attack. You want a little bit of the difference, don't you? You've got Craig with the height, but I suppose our seamers all have a very similar pace. And if a batter gets in against, say it's the windows between 82 and 85 miles an hour, you can get in against that style of bowling. Whereas a spinner, your triggers change. They are brilliant, to use proactively to break partnerships. So I think actually the lineup that the 14, I think you could probably pick a lot of different 11s out of that 14, but it does look a very exciting team.
I suppose I think in normal circumstances they would be playing Leach. I suppose if they got down to a very short game, they might say, we'll play an extra batsman and Lewis Goldworthy or whoever. But essentially, I think you've got if the wicket looks reasonably good, and I've seen it much greener than this at this time of the year at Taunton, then you want bowling options. You don't just want a battery of right-arm seamers, which is what we've got, but they're all slightly different and they're all high quality. Davey has been terrific this time of year for Somerset. Craig speaks for himself. It will be interesting how Lewis is going. He's going to be skippering the side. You will sort of want him to play every game, but not bowl quite so much, perhaps. And you want him to keep up his batting form of last year when he got us out of a few holes at number 7.
Yeah. It's Lewis is a very natural leader. He's got the command of the dressing room, and that's obviously a massive positive for him. I think always the challenge with Lewis is workload, physical workload, with his bowling. He's such an exciting bowler when he does. He's one of the rare bowlers in county cricket that has that ability to do the broad spells, the Stuart Broad spells.
Where something clicks.
He can take a 5 for in 3 or 4 overs. He's got exceptional skills, but again, it's only he knows how he's feeling. He's always on the knife edge with his back and all that kind of stuff.
And you've got to the stage where you don't particularly want him doing the donkey work, do you? You want him to bowl with purpose to get some wickets, but not be the one who's bowling because someone's got a bowl and we've run out of options.
We've got it's a very star-studded sort of lineup, though. Who is going to be the donkey? You could have someone
Well, now
as
you've
good
got
as
trees.
Peter.
I mean, I don't know.
You could have some, but in all seriousness,
Well, I don't know. Is Davey a donkey? I don't suppose he is.
he's much better bowler than that, but he can bowl his overs. He's got a decent engine. Siddle's got a phenomenal engine for a guy of his age and experience in the game. So, yeah, I mean,
Jack Brooks has been bowling well pre-season. I've been told.
Brooksy's got a great engine as well. So,
and as is Casey.
But ideally, you don't need one, because if Tom Abel comes back in and can bowl, and Tom Lammonby, we're not talked about him at all. I know as a left-arm seaman, but someone like Lewis, you don't really want your bowlers bowling more than 20 overs a day. You don't want someone bowling 25. Lewis is probably 15.
Probably 20, I don't think. But
Lewis is probably a 15-over man these days. I think
lots of wickets.
Yeah.
I'd be aware. I mean, I agree with you about Tom Lammonby. Just as a 5 or 10 overs a day, if it's his day, he can pick up one. He's actually did quite well for us with the ball last summer. So I'd be more wary of Tom Abel at the moment, given the injury he's got, which is a bowling injury. And Pete will know far better than me that if that side, when the side goes,
the old spare ribs, they're dodgy.
Yeah, for quick bowlers or medium pace bowlers, it takes a long time to get your confidence back to really bowl the ball, I would have thought.
Yeah, the intercostal muscles are.
Do you have one of them?
Yeah, I did one. Serratus anterior is one of the higher up ones. I
thought you'd only have a
7 attachments onto the ribs, and I actually blew one. I had ruptured one off the bone. It's called a grade 3, and I remember bowling I was playing for Central Districts at Wellington. I bowled the ball, and I thought someone had thrown something at me. When it initially happened, I thought someone had hit me in the rib. And then I tried to bowl the next ball and thought I'd been stabbed. It's very, very uncomfortable. That's an 8 to 12 week process to get anything like bowling fit again. So, but one thing we know about Tom Abel, very diligent with his physical side of things. He would have done all the rehabilitation with Thorpe downstairs. Great medical team, great facilities now with the gym. I'm sure when he does bowl, he'll be fine. But Tom Lammonby, I think you're exactly right. Point of difference, left armour, quality bowler, swings the ball. This time of year, it could be a great asset.
Yeah, and it helps. I think, if provided your body's okay, it helps young cricketers to have another string to their bow. Can you hear that?
Yes, that's the one.
That's the one. Because if it just relaxes you a bit, gets you in the game. It's a hard game if you're an opening batsman and you get a good and early on the first day. It's a long time before you have a chance to atone. But if you just come on and happen to get 1 for 15 or 7, you've contributed and you're feeling a bit better about yourself when you go out and bat.
It is a lovely place to be as a middle order player, even higher middle order player. If you can contribute, not even wickets, doing a job for, we talk a lot about bowling partnerships. Guys going for not many runs, 2 and over at one end, while a Craigo is striking up the other. That's really valuable, and I think it does relax you when you go out to bat, and especially in the era that we're coming into, the Bazball era. I've seen a lot of footage from the County Championship pre-season games. There's some seriously expansive shots going on. I mean, if you are going to be the type of club that's going to take this on and be positive, you kind of, as a batter, I think, do want that second fiddle.
Well, that's an interesting. I mean, I've watched England, as I say, in Pakistan, and they were brilliant to watch, amazing. On some incredibly, in the first match especially, it was like batting on an indoor net. It was so true, but nonetheless, they played, terrific cricket, and it's going to be interesting because I think the county players will have taken note. They've all sort of switched on had chats with McCullum, the directors have had, and Stokes about how they want the game to be played. Not dictating, but just saying this is what we're looking for, i.e. very positive with the bat. And so I reckon the county players will think, well, how do I get in this England time? It's hard if you're Dom Sibley, unless you've got to get a lot of runs if you're a blocker. But how can I play more expansively? How can I score a bit more quickly? And that's fine, but it could be a trap for some players as well.
Oh, massively.
And I worry about that with one or two of our players. That the first goal is to score runs, and the second goal is to score them as quickly as possible. That's the way round it's got to be. So I don't want
session
Abel.
1, Vix, to survive, then score runs. So, no, I mean, actually, the days that I went into the indoor school and had a bowl at the lads, Sean Dixon was one of the guys that I was bowling at for both the sessions. actually we had that discussion about, what are your thoughts of the positive style or brand of cricket that, we want to see in England. And I think the conversation was very, very sensible. I think there was an awareness that potentially to catch the England selector's eye, you have to be that kind of player. But also I'd like to think, and I definitely got this feeling from Sean when he was talking, that, you've got to play what's in front of you. I mean, it's the idiosyncrasies of county cricket, the green wet one, you're not going to see that at test level. So hopefully the selectors are aware that if someone's scoring a weight of runs, they're still as valuable, and setting up a game to, for your team to win is the most important thing. You've got to focus on what's required every session, every ball of every game. What's appropriate for the particular day's play.
But it might. Players will try and play more freely, I think. I mean, it's suited Harry Brook down to.
Oh yes.
I mean, the timing of Brooks. He's it's been phenomenal. But the timing of his arrival is fantastic for him because he's been given that freedom and he relishes it and he's played astonishingly
Playing with
well.
freedom, I think, is a byproduct of the 2020 era. I think we're in that anyway, regardless of Bazball. People play more attackingly now anyway, I think.
Yeah, but there was still a phase, where you'd get castigated for a bad dismissal, which didn't mean the prod forward, nice little nick to second slip, but the whoosh and he's just caught. It just didn't quite clear mid off. You don't get the same sympathy when you're caught mid off. You will know this, Pete.
Yes, I've hacked a few to mid off to me. I always think I would love to have the conversation with a guy like Tim Murtaugh or someone like that. I wonder if when they're listening to Bazball and we're going to be aggressive, they're rubbing their hands together thinking that's 80 wickets for me this season.
But if you look at the numbers last year, top 20 run scorers in Division 1, 13 of them made their runs at a strike rate of lower than 50 and 8 of those were openers. So it suggests there is still room for that, certainly in the county game. Whether that will shift?
I don't know. I mean, it's hard. But what would be interesting, I'm sure this would be the case, if Alistair Cook was 24, 25 now, doing what he did 15 years ago, when it was, I mean, he would play for England, wouldn't he? Of course he would. But you've got to be damn good now to be a blocker and play for England. You can't be an ordinary blocker.
No matter how great your shots are, your array of shots, your strike rate, if you're in the shed, as Robbo always used to say, you can't score runs in the hutchland.
Yeah. But you'd have enjoyed playing for this England regime.
Yeah, it's brilliant. I mean,
you play like that most of the time anyway.
Well, you always sense that, is there, can I go for it? But, I was lucky. I had a brilliant captain in Trez and Justin Langer in particular that didn't want to shackle you. They didn't want a batting lineup of 7 batters that all batted the same. We had players that could play and
Peter
bat time.
Bowler at the top, say.
And exactly. And you had me and Blackie and Keysvetter and Butler in the middle who would up the rate and catch up what they did. But you need a foundation.
Yeah.
If you're 4 down for 20 playing Bazball, you're not going to get many runs. But if you're top order, do that little bit of foundation work, tire the bowlers out. That's when your Abels, your Bartletts, and all the explosive players really, they can make hay.
Well, let's meander away from Somerset slightly and look at the other sides in the top division. And that's almost how Surrey have set themselves up. Defending champions, they had Rory Burns already. They brought Dom Sibley in, so they're very much going for that more traditional opening partnership. Vic, can you see past Surrey for the county championship? There's a lot of people talking about Lancashire as well. Hampshire were really close last year. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I did dip into my Guardian this morning where they had a nice little preview on my phone. Well, first of all, it was a beautiful piece written by Tanya Eldred, who does a lot of... but I haven't spoken to her the fact that she had Somerset 8th in the first division in her prediction and therefore relegated. So I'll make a note of that and come back to her a bit later. But I mean, Lancashire is strong at the moment. I think Jennings is an interesting summer for him because he is slightly old school, but he's scored a lot of runs last year. He's skippering Lancashire, I think. So he's suddenly sort of evolved from promising youngster to senior pro captain material, but he could have an impact with Lancashire, and if he scored lots of runs, you'd think he might be in the shake-up for the Test series, although there's some juggling to do at Test level. So Lancashire, Hampshire have got Hampshire have been close, haven't they, for the last 2 or 3 years? And they've got if their key bowlers stay fit, they're a potent lineup.
Well, momentum's a huge thing in the game. Getting off to a good start as well. I mean, let's face it. You have a look at the 14 names that are down on Somerset's list. I know we're talking about other clubs, but there's a lot of great looking squads. But it's about getting a couple of batters to click, a couple of bowlers in good rhythm. I mean, I think it's wide open this time of the year. I think you get a real good sense around June time. I think it's very difficult to predict with so many good players around. But Surrey, they're always going to be a powerhouse. I mean, I actually had a good conversation with Dom Sibley's agent Jason Ratcliffe on the golf course a few weeks ago about what is the message to someone like Dom Sibley regarding how to play. But if he stacks on 1,500 runs and Surrey win the county championship, that's the only currency you have as a cricketer is your runs and wickets. I mean, strike rate, I suppose, is it important in the longer format of the game? I'm not totally convinced, especially that top 3 position. I don't think England is still completely solid with their 1, 2, 3 batting lineup. There's huge opportunities for somebody who can bat some time. Yeah.
But they put their cards on the table by the people they pick. I mean, they haven't picked any blockers, have they? They've gone with Duckett, who's exciting, has done really well. The excitement will be when you're up against really high quality bowling on pitches that might do a bit if you get an overcast day at, I don't know, Lords or somewhere and the ball's jagging around. How long will they last? But that's part of the deal.
I certainly want.
But the other thing I do, I mean, I've always liked sides that score fast and bowl mean. That's so simple, really, isn't it? In theory. So I like the fact that they give them licence, and one factor that I always think of is that even the best bowlers, if suddenly their good ball goes for 4, they start to get mystified. It doesn't matter who they are. They could be. They could have 300 Test wickets to their name, but if their good balls suddenly start going for 4, they think, "Oh, hang on, what's going on here?" And they will start to bowl not as well.
I think that is the one real big finding of the sort of Bazball era, isn't it? Is applying pressure to
even
to
Test
guys.
bowlers will creak because they're not used to that.
Imagine a Glenn McGrath, when he was at his peak, having someone dancing down the wicket and belting it back over his head. What would his reaction have been? It never happened to him, or very, very rarely.
Grumpy. No, it didn't.
Well, it did happen to him in 2005, and the outcome wasn't as strong as you'd expect from someone such high quality.
In a curious way, that's what England fantastically did. They took him on in 2005. Anyway, that's ancient history. But I mean, the contrast that I saw, I'm still drawing on Pakistan. That Anderson in Pakistan actually went for about 2 and over and bowled beautifully. But no one tried, because it was Jimmy Anderson, none of the Pakistan players even thought about taking the game to him. They just thought, we'll just try and play him out, hang on in there. He went for probably less, or about 2 and over, and he'd always pick one up somewhere along the line. So he's earned that, but if it had been Joe Bloggs running up to bowl against these guys, I'm sure he'd gone about 3.5 and
there's
over.
no respect anymore, but predicting's very difficult, and it's a nice thing to mention now as Somerset are running a brilliant little quiz for all our members, the Somerset Predictions League, sponsored by WPA. You can go on there, predict game by game who's going to be the highest run scorer, wicket taker, all that kind of stuff. You can have the bragging rights with your fellow members in the stands, who's predicting and who should be, maybe, in Andy Hurrey's ear as one of the selection panel. You never know. This prediction league could evolve.
Are you announcing that as a prize? Is that an exclusive here, Treeks?
I think that could actually be a prize, yeah. If you win the predictions league, you get to sit next to the director of cricket and pick the 2024 opening team. But no, it's pretty exciting. It's on Somerset County Cricket Club's website. You log in and have a little sift through, and I'm sure we'll have a lot of fun about that over the year.
Well, why don't we have a go?
I'll keep my predictions to a minimum.
No, I'm going to put you on the spot. Come on.
Oh, no. Well, I like the way things are unfolding in terms of the predictions I've read in the sort of media, which seems to have Somerset finishing 8th in the Guardian. I mean, Tanya, what's come over you? Or 7th somewhere else, just avoiding red. I quite like the fact that people are not anticipating too much somehow, because we might surprise them.
I think people are underestimating the strength of the batters that we've brought in. Actually, that's a bit. There's 3 big additions to have Bancroft around, on top of what's already a top draw bowling attack. I'm not saying Somerset are going to win it, but I think there are weaker sides in the league. I think Somerset should be aiming high, a little bit higher than
Also,
they will be aiming higher.
And as a sort of, we are in the West Country, I quite like the notion of sides who don't host test matches forging a way towards the championship. Cheers me up.
Yeah, I think there is that sort of narrative in the test powers are going to really be the power to be in county cricket, and
there is this
very
feeling,
competitive.
There is also this feeling that sides that have test matches or host 100 have more financial clout and more capacity to entice what they regard as the best players to go and play for them, and that is a factor. Which is cheering to see Craig Overton sign up a few weeks ago, but that is a pattern that would obviously worry clubs like us a little bit. That sides want to go and play at grounds where there's a big turnover, where there's 100 team. And they like to have their locals playing in their 100 team, so that we got to battle against that.
One such ground is Trent Bridge, Triggs, a former club of yours. They've come up through Division 2. They won the title at Acanter in the end. Everyone knows the backstory to them. That COVID hit them quite hard in terms of not enabling them to win promotion a little bit sooner. Do you fancy them to be one of those sides that comes up and has a run at the title as well? They've got quality in Duckett, Clark, Hamid. They've got an absolute battery of bowlers: Stuart Broad, Dane Patterson. They've signed Ollie Stone as well if they can get him fit. They've got Lyndon James, Liam Patterson-White. It's a great side there. Yeah,
dangerous, very dangerous team, I think. Brilliantly run by Peter Moores, Paul Franks, Kevin Shine. A number of coaches. The environment, I think it was a real eye-opener for me playing my last couple of years of my career at a test ground. It does have a bit of a different feel to it in many, many ways. I mean, there's strengths and weaknesses for playing at a club like Somerset and Nottinghamshire, but they do have that gravity behind them. When it comes to signings, Trentbridge is a phenomenal place to play. You're always going to draw a lot of quality players. Like I said, the signings of Duckett, Clark, probably the brightest start. 4 years ago when they signed them, they were the brightest stars in county cricket. And it's, I think if I was one of those type of players, I think I would be drawn potentially to a test ground. But I think Sarge and Jace have made some phenomenal signings down here. There's a lot of really exciting overseas talent now, and it's very, very sort of murky now, the waters of signing an overseas player because of the
It's a terrible
schedules.
jigsaw puzzle because you never quite know who's going to be available when, and then stuff happens that they have to change their plans. So in the old days, you just signed someone for the season, that was it. Of course,
arguably you'd say that the signings that have been made for the county, this I think is quite unusual, something I wasn't expecting. Some of the signings that I've seen for the county championship, the first 5-6 games, are more exciting than I see in the 100 pot and for the Blast, because you've got this American league going on. I think actually one-day cricket signings have become harder to come by, because I think
they
it's
can
probably
go to America.
Well, they can
in July.
the facts are they make more money going to different countries. So it's something that maybe the ECB and the competitions have to look at. But I think some of the overseas players that are on show, it's almost got a feel of the sort of 70s, 80s, 90s again. You've got some serious players coming over.
Yeah. And it's rather encouraging. They like the idea. They get reasonably well paid, but they like the idea of playing red ball cricket, and a lot of it with the sort of intensity.
Like a novelty.
Yeah. But they do. I mean, they you don't often hear the Aussies who come over to play slagging off the championship. They think it's great, partly because they play quite a lot more than they do in Australia, and partly because it is pretty competitive and the standard is okay.
Well, there's one that when this game eventually gets underway, we may well see a sprinkle of stardust in the opposition. And actually, it goes back to the conversation you were having a bit earlier about someone like Sir Alistair Cook get used to facing quick bowlers. Suddenly he has to face the kind of 75, 80 mile an hour bowlers like Chris Rushworth, who's been so successful. Ollie Hannon-Dolby as well has been key for Warwickshire. Those two are likely to play, but then the point of difference is Hassan Ali, who's a Pakistani international, had good success with Lancashire, and I'm quite excited about watching him play, Vic.
Yeah, I mean, Pakistan pace bowlers have enjoyed coming over here, and there's some good ones around. I think the big left arm is playing somewhere too, isn't he? Or he's signed somewhere. It might be one-day cricket. I can't remember.
Knox, I think he's playing T20 at Knox, isn't he?
Yeah.
Well, currently the chap you just mentioned, Sir Alistair Cook, is one not out off of 3 balls, so he only has a strike rate of 33.3.
Well, he can't play for England then.
He'd be binned off for England selection, but he's facing Tim Murtagh, who is exactly
He
one
won't
of
like
those
Tim Murtagh.
county bowlers, and Toby Rowland-Jones got a bit more pace, a bit more bounce about him, but. Yeah, just having a look at the scores, there hasn't been...
There's a wicket, yeah?
There hasn't been a wicket. I'm amazed. Nottinghamshire 11 for naught. There's a couple of games, obviously, rain affected. Surrey 8 without loss. Essex flying 14 without loss. So some exciting games of cricket that are on at the moment, but sadly not here at the Cooper Associates County Ground today.
Well, I reckon we'll wrap up very shortly, but before we do, I'm not going to let you get away with it. We're going to have a go at the WPA Predictions League. So you can find it on the new website, somersetcountycc.co.uk. You can play against your friends. We're going to be keeping track of the scores all through the season, so everything counts. It's going to be every game as well, not just county championship. So it's game by game this year. So first question to both of you: who will score the most runs for Somerset in this game? Sean Dixon, Tom Kohler-Cadmore or Cameron Bancroft? It's quite evenly split. Vic, go on.
Oh, God, I don't know. Well, I'm going to go Cameron Bancroft. He's had that extra day to acclimatise. He's had a good winter.
He's a wonderful winter, isn't he? More than almost 300 runs ahead.
But, I mean, it's a totally random, ridiculous question.
Oh, I know, but I'm still going to ask it to you as well, Triggs.
I'm going to go for... I've got a feeling George Bartlett is going to have a cracking start to the year, so I'm going to go with George Bartlett.
Cracking. It's classic Triggs, isn't it, to go outside of the 3 options. OK, George Bartlett for Triggs. Who will take most wickets in this game? We've got Overton, who's got 118 votes, Lewis Gregory 5, Jack Brooks 2, Jack Leach 4, Josh Davey 28. Vic?
Well, are you allowed to go for the favourite? I should go for the favourite here.
You are. I'm going for the favourite, Triggs.
You've earned the right, Vic, to go for the favourite. I will go with the master of the cluster of wickets, Lewis Gregory.
Oh, lovely. We'd love to see a couple of Lewis Gregory clusters over the next couple of days. Right, I've clicked on who will win the match, but it's not just win-lose. The options are Somerset thrashing, Somerset comfortable, Somerset close, and then Warwickshire thrashing, Warwickshire comfortable, Warwickshire close. I'll come to you first, Triggs.
Draw, weather wins.
Yeah, I'm with you.
Weather wins all round. Oh, we're miserable in the commentary box, and it's only the first. It's only 17 minutes after the scheduled start of play.
Draw?
Draw's not. No, there's not.
Okay, we'll go with Somerset will come close.
Okay.
But it will still be a draw.
Still be a draw. Right. This is an easy one, and one I don't know the value in it, but it's there anywhere. Who is going to win the toss, Vic Marks?
Oh, for goodness sake.
It's like heads or tails at a dinner, isn't it? You go one, I'll go the other.
Well, look, I have no expertise in this. I should say whoever calls heads.
Okay, heads. Triggs?
Well, that'll be them, actually. That'll be Warwickshire, by definition.
Yeah, I think Lewis has had plenty of time practicing his technique, so I think Somerset will win the toss, and it will fall down tails.
Well, actually, I'm not sure this will run. But I have one predictions for the season. I've just suddenly hit upon it. Somerset to win the championship. Sandy Lyle to win the Masters.
Oh,
what price a double?
Hasn't he just retired and played his last competition?
No, I think he's playing this year.
One more Masters.
This is his last Masters.
Okay.
But he has won one in the past, which is more than we've done.
That's exciting, isn't it? It's a great sporting week. I mean, for all those fans of the slightly slower, sedate sports, you could have a little listen to us, go and grab a bit of lunch, turn on the Masters. What a great 4 days we could potentially have.
Oh, magic. Yeah, you can carry on with that predictions league. It's Somerset playing 11. Who will hit the most sixes? So do log on to that. Sign up. Play against your friends. Triggs, then. Vic says Somerset going to win it. For you, where will Somerset finish in the county championship?
I don't know. I don't know if Somerset will win the county championship, but I really do believe that going into the last 2 games, they'll have a chance to.
Ooh,
so I don't think that's a definitive prediction. Obviously, it'd be the dream. We'll all have a great time celebrating if it does happen. But I think after last year, some great signings will be within sniffing distance.
Need a better start. Lost the first 3 games last year, which really put Somerset on the back foot. I'm intrigued. I'm more out of hope than expectation, but I think we'll be up and around there. We will find out, though. No play today on day 1. We're hopeful of some play tomorrow. We'll be with you all season. WPA Health Insurance, the Primary County Championship stream sponsor. Vic Marks is here. Pete Drago's here. Myself, Sam Dalling. We've got the rest of the team are in for the rest of the week. Harry Everett stood about. Charlie Taylor, Sophie Luff, Stephen Lamb. What a lineup we've got for you. Enjoy the rest of your days, and hopefully we will join you tomorrow. Fingers crossed.